Hello and welcome to the Cool Grandpa Podcast. This is your host Greg Payne coming at you from Studio 12. This podcast is about being the best possible grandpa you can be, focusing on what it is to be a grandpa and how we can all share that experience together for our grandchildren. Today's guest on the Cool Grandpa Podcast is a good friend of mine from way back when, Jon Hosler. I almost said Jonathan, but you know, Jon was a good friend of mine. We grew up playing Little League Baseball together, went to the same high school for our senior year. So Jon came over and we both graduated from Annandale High School in 1988. And from there, Jon went on and joined the Army and was a mechanic for the Army working on the Scout helicopters, spent some time over in Iraq, and then came back stateside. Eventually went into the welding business. Jon's got 4 grandchildren and is currently living in Alabama, and has the unique perspective of having the family and the grandkids super close by. Jon, anything else you want to add to this?
No, I say, like I said, after the Army, I bounced around in Virginia for a while and then moved down to Alabama. That's probably been the best thing because the kids had moved down here with their mama. And it was just too far away to drive to see them, and the cost of living down here is a lot better. You can get a lot more done for your buck, yeah. I guess.
No, absolutely, you can get a lot more done down there. And one of the things too that's that Jon and I both have in common is a good interest in hockey. And lots of times I see Jon's posts. He's got hockey pictures of him and his grandson enjoying a good game down there. Now, Jon, one of the things I want to talk about is your first experience when you heard the news that you were going to become a grandfather. Can you give us a little bit of background and then your reaction to hearing the news that you were going to be a grandpa?
I think overall I was probably really excited. My oldest daughter, Allie, unfortunately, she was kind of young, and because that's what I thought. I said, I'm way too young to be a granddad. Because my oldest he's 9 now, but so I was 41 when I became a granddad, and it was a lot of shock, to tell you the truth. But I don't know, I'd say just like having because he's been around within half hour or so of us since he was born, so he's been my buddy.
Oh, very cool. That's fantastic. One of the things too that I think is unique somewhat in your case is that you've got the kids right there and the grandkids right there with you. When I was growing up, and I can't remember if you were in the same boat, but my grandparents lived all the way out in Oregon. So growing up in Virginia and then grandparents in Oregon, I would see them probably every few years, so it's a unique experience when people have that grandparent being right close to them.
Yeah, because I say all my grandparents all lived in Indiana. When we moved to Virginia when I was about 8. And so then we'd see them once a year, maybe twice a year, but normally once a year. And I say it's great now though, because the kids always, is Pawpaw home? Is Pawpaw home? All of them. Wyatt, a funny story, Wyatt, when he was real little, when he started talking, they all call me Pawpaw, but if I was in the room, he wouldn't say Pawpaw. But if I walked out of the room, then he was a babbler.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he was something else.
Yeah, that's funny when they're real young, just what their behaviors and thought processes and things are. I was recently sent a video. My grandson's up in Virginia, so we get videos and Facebooks and things like that. And the latest one that he's really into is he only seems to be dancing to the music of ABBA at this point. You put other music and thing comes on, he might move around a little bit, but for whatever reason, ABBA comes on, and then it's just going to town. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Now, as the kids were, you're having the grandkids so close, have you been intentional with time with Wyatt and the other grandkids? And if so, how did that come about? Was that a transition away from hey, can you watch the grandchild for a little bit while we run errands? And then did it morph into being pretty intentional time, or how did that come about?
Well, I always say Wyatt, him and his mama actually lived with me for a little bit, and then she got remarried, and that's where I gained another grandson. They're actually Wyatt and Brody are uh, exactly like a year and a day apart.
Oh, wow.
One's birthday is the 11th and one's the 12th. And I guess when they're younger, she was still young, growing up, 17
Sure.
years old, 17, 18, dropped out of school, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
So, it's kind of a parent thing too, but I don't know, we were always buddies.
Right.
And all the other ones, because I got Brody, then there's Nova, she's 4, and then Waylon, he'll be 2 in July. Nova, being the only girl, but she's my buddy. Anytime she comes over, she wants to spend the night. Every single time. And it's like, well, no, I got work, and your nanny's got work, so it's that. But boy, they love coming over.
Yeah. So what's been one of the big differences that you've noticed between the boys and Nova and what she wants to do as far as activities, if there is any difference at this age?
Well, right now, like I said, the boys are 9 and 8 and almost 2, and Wyatt really likes Fortnite. If he's got a cell phone for emergencies, but if it rings, it's normally if he calls me, it's, hey Paul, want to play Fortnite? And I mean, they like riding bikes, with the quarantine and all that. I mean, I'm still essential, and their mom, everybody. It hadn't changed anything for us really, but
Sure.
They ride bikes. Nice days. Everybody sits out, neighbors too. Across the street and watch the kids ride around. And the boys really like that. Nova likes riding a scooter outside, but she's a big doll. Likes to play with her dolls in her kitchen, and she's been bugging me to build a sandbox, which I've been looking at. I just hadn't had the time. Work's
Sure.
been crazy. And I know they all enjoy outside. Waybo, we call him. His first name's Waylon, middle name's Bo, but it got mashed into Waybo.
Okay.
And he's a wrecking ball. I guess she's typical almost 2-year-old.
Right.
And Nova does a lot of pageants and all that too. I mean, not right now, but she really likes the beauty pageants. She did them for a while when she was real little, and then took a couple years off, and then now before all this started, she was doing, really enjoyed those.
How are you, I guess, supporting or involved in that? Are you just more or less an active and positive participant in those things, or are you helping out with any of the rehearsals, any of the running around?
Well, my girlfriend, I mean, more than that, really. I mean, we've been together over 5 years. She buys a lot of the dresses and the makeup. I mean, I show up and see it and all that for Nova's stuff.
Right.
I've been to quite a few of them. I mean, she enjoys them, so that's good. I say it's a beauty pageant for kids right now. Now, the boys, Nova was going to start T-ball this year, but both the boys really, they like baseball. Is probably the favorite, but Wyatt, he'll play about any sport that you let him. I say Brody really likes baseball, and he just hadn't found that niche. He's tried a couple other that he just doesn't care for. But I don't know, like baseball season normally, that you ever seen the shirt. If you're looking for us, we'll be at the ballpark because especially with both the older boys playing, between practices and games, they were there all the time.
Now, what do you think the kids get out of having the grandparents and having you around and so active? Because certainly you see a lot of the other families, you see a lot of the other kids that maybe don't have the grandparents around, but do you get a sense that the kids are getting something a little bit extra out of it by having Papa around?
Well, I think so. I mean, I know they enjoy and they get upset when I'm gone for the week. I got lucky the last couple of weeks. I've been home every night, and then they always want to come over. And I mean, I'm a friend, but I'm also, I don't know, experience a little bit. Wyatt likes to play. Like I said, he likes the video games right now. He's crazy. And Brody, he likes, if I'm working on a project or something, he'll come out and try to help. Sometimes it's a hindrance or a help. And
Right.
Nova's just Nova and all that. But they, I think they get a lot of, that just, I don't know, it's like an example. I mean, their mom and dad works a lot too. Well, not a lot. I mean, just normal
Right.
jobs
Right.
and all that. And I think it just shows them a little continuity too.
Well, and that's an interesting point. And some of the folks that I've been talking to have really brought that up, that, and I've made that observation too, is even with my kids, is that as we're working, as we're still growing, developing, going through 20s, 30s, even 40s, we're trying to be as focused as we can with the kids and their activities. But sometimes we've got in the back of our mind a big project that's going on. We've got something that's going on with work. We've got, some stressors that we haven't really been through before, while we're trying to be present with whatever's going on with the children.
Mm-hmm.
As that role of grandpa comes into it, we're a little bit further down the road than our kids are. And so a lot of the people I've talked to have said that because of that, we're much more present when we're with the grandkids. The stuff about work, the stuff about some of the stressors and some of those things where we've been through it enough times that we're not worried about it. We can sit down and focus for this hour or this afternoon and give that grandchild, if not 100% attention, certainly 80, 90% attention.
Yeah, I think I agree with that because, I get with age comes wisdom, and I've been doing the same thing basically for 25 years.
Right.
So, I mean, there's stress on the job and all, but normally when I come home, I kind of, for the most part, when I'm home on the weekends, especially, I just leave it. And, financially and experience wise and all that, you're in a better place. I'd almost say I'm like another dad sometime, but yes and no, because the grandkids being close enough. But old adage, hey, they're great, but I could send them home to their parents, if they get too much.
Exactly. Well, and the other thing too is that having the grandparents so close by, to your point, is it adds another layer to that family unit. So it's not just mom and dad and the child, but you've got grandpa and you've got some other people around. And I know It seems like even your dad and mom come down quite a bit, and your brother's around. Those grandkids have good 3 layers of family that's pretty close by, and that's got to be adding a lot of stability in their lives, that they know, when it's them against the world, whatever that is for their age, they've got a strong family unit behind them.
Yeah, that's because they're 15 minutes from me, and where they bought their house that they're at now, my son-in-law, mom lives across the street basically. I mean, the driveway's 200 or 300 feet long, so there's separation, but she's there and she watches them a couple days a week normally because she's retired now. But besides, they see a lot. It's not like when we were growing up. It's like, well, we had friends, and mom and dad were there in Springfield, and then we had an aunt and uncle and all down in Dale City, I guess. I think that's where they lived for a while. But grandparents were all, and aunts and uncles, most of them were in Indiana, so they were a little bit of strangers and all that. But here, they know, we know everybody. It's pretty tight knit.
Right.
Pretty much. I mean, my son lives down in Hoover, which is right outside of Birmingham, so he's about an hour and 15 minutes away, and he comes home. Well, here recently, not as much, but I'd say on average, every 4 or 5 weeks, and he's Uncle Johnny, like I get with the paw and all that. And then my youngest daughter's is home now. She's up in Chicago working on her master's degree.
Okay.
And thank goodness she come home for spring break when all this started, and now she's been home for 5 or 6 weeks now, and she's home for another month. But they know Aunt JoJo. Her name's Sammy Joe, and everybody, they just call her JoJo.
One of the things too that I think really adds to it is just the mentorship. To your point, when the kids were helping you with some of the activities and doing some of those things, is getting that exposure of the way you're doing things and setting that example and that work ethic that also gets reinforced back at home, but then they see that it's carried over, so it's not just mom or dad are saying to do it this way. You're also seeing that example set by grandpa. Now,
Yeah, I agree with that.
what are some ways that you're being intentional with maybe some of the interactions that you're being with? And what I'm getting at is, as you're having that grandpa time with them, what are some of the things that you're doing, sharing your experiences, sharing your, parts of your life with those kids as they're growing up? I mean, certainly it's all over the place for us, right? It's music, it's maybe love of cars, it's different things, interests and hobbies, but
Yeah.
exposing those kids to much more than what they see on TV or Netflix or even in their schoolroom. So any ideas on how people could be even intentional with that?
Like I said, with Wyatt, man, I did everything with him, especially when he got out moving around and, kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
First they're not so much fun in the beginning, besides being cute to look at.
Right.
But, like going to hockey games, I took him, there's the Huntsville Havoc, and they're a semi-pro team that they're not real expensive, and it's pretty close to going to like an NHL game. And, I can remember taking him before he could walk. We'd carry him in there, and he'd hear the buzzer go off. One time he fell asleep on the way there. We were carrying him in. He heard the buzzer go off for the game, and his head popped up, and he started clapping his hands. And and they all do that. They're part of the kids club where they go out and on the ice for part of, during in between the periods. And I don't know, you get to be, I don't know, being a pawpaw is more fun than being a parent, because you can, spoil them a little bit.
Sure.
Like why, they get interested in stuff like hockey. I don't know, Alabama's not a hotbed of hockey, so right. I don't know if he would have been crazy about it before then, but he'll sit there and he could probably tell you every, probably him and Brody could both tell you every logo. You just show them jerseys, and they could, tell you which team it is and probably where they're from for the most part, because they know. And then, like, when college football season, they'll sit there and watch for a while. And baseball, I always tell them baseball's more of it's a social sport, because I don't know, you can talk more during a ball game.
Right. You've got those breaks in between when, the pitcher catches the ball, walks back up to the mound, and you've got a minute or so where you can have some conversation.
Yeah, because I'd showed Wyatt, that, we'd have it on in the background while we were doing something else. When he was real little, or when he was littler, gotten into puzzles, we'd sit there and there'd be a ball game on in the background, and we'd be doing a puzzle at the table or something like that, one that was more age appropriate for him and all that. And then fishing, they like to go fishing, and there's a golf course pretty close to me that they bug me all the time. The problem is they don't, being 8 and 9 and all that, they don't listen real great, and they don't want to get hit by a golf ball that I hit, because they're hitting and they're just run off, and it's like, no, stay here for a minute,
right?
Let me hit first and all that. But there's some of the stuff, because Daddy, he does a lot of stuff with both the boys. They don't have the same dads, but Wyatt goes back and forth 1 week and 1 week, and he gets stuff from his dad and then his stepdad, and then Brody, the same way with him, because his dad's more into I'm not a big hunter, but fishing wise, we like to go fishing once in a while, and definitely they like when ball season's around. They really, really, the atmosphere at the park and all that. And I think I instilled a lot of that in, in my kids, and that's just transferred on down the line, because they all played Little League, like we all did in Springfield and all that. My dad, umpired for a long time, and he just recently kind of retired from that. And Mom did challengers, and the baseball thing, it's pretty strong through the family.
Right. Now, one of the things that you talked about that's kind of interesting and want to talk about just a little bit more is, as the kids, have different parents that they might go off to for weekends, and some of that is, the stability that your presence adds to that too, because there's differences where the kids go off and they behave differently, which is natural,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going back over to mom's or I'm going back to dad's, and even those sides of the family. But the coming back for the day-to-day interactions, your presence so close has got to also be able to help kind of flip that switch to be reacclimated back to what the home rules are, right?
Yeah.
And kind of those home interactions.
Yeah, I think so because Wyatt just bounces back week to week, normally, and they're super great co-parents between the two families as far as if somebody needs him for something else, and you don't see a big behavioral difference.
Okay.
Now Brody's mom, I think they're down in Florida now, so he goes for like the major holidays and half the summer, and when he comes back, sometimes he's a little more difficult, to get back in the swing of things.
Sure.
And all that. But I think part of our house, it's not my way or the highway, but there's a certain way you act there. And I mean, all kids are like that.
Right.
I remember my mom babysitting, my kids when they were little, they acted different for her than they did for me. And it same way for everybody else. Like, they did that or they ate that. I said, they don't do that at my house. And,
right.
Because I try to be, I don't, kind of a hermit, stuck in my ways, but
sure.
Stability is something good. I think they see that for the most part.
Right. Well, they've got to see that, hey, despite things that, going to different places and different environments, hey, we're coming back, and then here's grandpa who's down the street or really close. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has got to help to ground them and kind of bring them back a little bit faster.
Yeah, I'd hope so. I know sometimes they, like I say, really with Brody, he gets a little more difficult sometimes, but for the older he gets, the easier it is now. And I think, he realizes, because there might be some stories that get told. I really don't know. I don't get into that
right.
with them. I'm there for them. They know if I'm not out messing around in the yard or doing something, if I'm inside, I'll probably be in my chair. And so they always run in, and if you ever seen that rocker, it's got the two seats for the kids to sit on. It's a wooden rocker. Well, I need one of those in a recliner, because normally I have one grandkid on each arm of the chair where I'm sitting all squished up. Even if we're just watching TV together, even if it's, it's not back like when we were kids,
right.
Cartoons were in the afternoon or Saturday morning, now they watch it all the time. So I want SpongeBob, which is on almost 24 hours a day if you look hard enough.
Yeah, my grandson is into Mickey's Toontown, I think, or Mickey's. Yeah. Anyway, there's something with Mickey Mouse on a train and all the kids, and it's full blown computer animation. I mean, it's but man, that's his show, and yeah, I think you can find that pretty much just about any time, any place on Disney.
Yeah, it's like Nova's got an iPad that was we'd got it, one of those AT&T desks where they say, well, you get this and you get a couple iPads. Well, it's disconnected from the plan, but it still works on Wi-Fi, and she can scroll videos, and it's the same thing. What's with kids watching kids play with toys? I was like, just go play with your own toys. Or should watch 5 minutes of one video and then go to another video until it dies, and stuff like like me trying to set up this Zoom thing. I was like, well, I've been on for half hour, because I was like, well, I've never Zoomed before. I don't have that kind of job, so I don't have to.
Right. Yeah. No, it's well, and that's a whole other topic. It's just how the technology going crazy. I was telling somebody, may have been at the Xfinity store or something. They're helping me get my new cell phone set up. And I was like, man, back in my day, I was a genius if I could figure out how to get the blinking clock on my grandparents' VCR to stop. That was about the level of my technical expertise was at the VCR. Everything, but you throw a little device in a kid's hand and they just go to town.
Yeah, I know. Even Waylon, who's not even 2, if he likes to pick up somebody's cell phone and he can mash buttons. I think it's more accidental right now, but it won't be long. He can turn on videos if he wants, or he'll carry, because him and Nova are always around each other. They don't go anywhere, as far as one goes to one parent or another. Their brother full full brother and sister, so they're always together, even if they go to my house or grandma's house that lives across the street or anywhere else. They're always together. And sometimes it's cats and dogs. I've
Sure.
got some pretty funny Snapchats of Nova yelling at him because he gets into every, typical 2-year-old almost, into everything, and
Oh
no
yeah.
fear.
Yeah.
They said if he was the first grandson, he might have been the only one because he's nothing like the other ones. He's fearless.
Oh boy. That'll be yeah, and that'll continue to be a challenge as he gets older too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just gonna expand. As we start to get close to wrapping this up, what advice would you have to, let's say, a new grandpa that's going to be living close to their kids? I think is wanting to be that intentional grandfather, not just the occasional babysitter and not just the occasional hanging out with the grandkids, but somebody that's going to be more intentional with the time that they spend with the grandkids and some of the lessons that they might pass on. What advice would you have for that person?
Well, I say especially when the grandkids are younger, or like when you're first going to be one, is experience. They like to hear what you've done, and they like the stability. And I say you had kids, and now you got grandkids, and just you can be there for them. And I mean, you be their friend and get them interested in your activities or see what they're interested in. Might have a common goal in line. I mean, you can't really. I say you really can't mess them up. That's their parents' job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to be a nice solid rock because they know Pawpaw's not going to blow smoke, shoot straight, and try to help them a little bit. Help them grow. It's all life experiences, really. I think.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like too is it's treating them almost like that equal, right? It's being honest and forthright with them when you can. It's sharing the experiences and your stories, and you're going to get approached differently than what they're going to approach their parents with.
Yeah, I think you can be that confidant sometime, especially when they get older, because I've seen that, and mine aren't old enough yet to have them kind of secrets, but I've noticed some of my friends and all that got older grandkids. They might come over to Nanny and Pawpaw's and tell them something that they scared to tell the parents,
Right.
because they know you're not going to tear their heads off.
Sure. Well, and that's an important lesson, and you don't get there unless you have that relationship built up early.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't have that kind of that close relationship and that trust, even when they're older, they're not going to stop by and ask you about something if they happen to mess something up and they need to figure out how to work it out with their family.
Yeah.
So hugely important. And Jon, as we're starting to wrap this up, one of the things that I also ask people is to share a favorite story they have of their grandfather, or a favorite story that they have of being a grandfather. And if you have one of those, I'd appreciate you sharing it with us.
Well, let's see. Well, I could say back when one of my favorite meeting a grandfather is, they lived out in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we'd go out, every summer for a little bit. And I can remember one time we went over to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and Grandpa had a toupee and false teeth. Well, we got there and they weren't expecting. He didn't have those in. It's like, who's that? Yeah, that's just something that, I mean, I know that's like, it's probably 40 years in the past, but that still sticks with me.
Well, and something you'll be mindful of as those things start creeping up on us. Huh?
Yeah.
Always keep them at arm's length in case the kids show up.
Yeah, because at my house, you never know when they're going to show up, because my daughter there for a while, we had a code word if it was just her and Nova, and she had to get home and didn't have time to come by, that she'd call, because Nova would be, call Pawpaw, see if he's home. And so she'd call, or she'd text me before she called and say you're not there, even if you are, because they just, sometimes you got to go home.
Right.
And Nova'd keep on her about that. And I say that'd be my favorite part, how much they want to come over. I mean, it's not that I spoil them rotten, but they get to do stuff, and when they're around talking to me, I'm not staring at my phone or anything like that. I think that's a generational thing too. Yeah, I have my phone, but I could take it or leave it some days.
Well, and it's important to remember too, to be able to put it down on the, face down on the table, or leave it in your pocket, or whatever, because they do know if you're paying attention or not. And you might be hearing words while you're looking at your screen, but to them, you're not paying attention.
Yeah, because I'm noticing that my girlfriend, her grandson is 17, and he lives with us. He has that problem with staring at the phone. I mean, he doing okay in school, and he got a job at Walmart, a dream job. I wish we'd had that opportunity at 17, making 11 or 12 bucks an hour, putting groceries in people's cars. But he's very distracted by technology, because he'll leave stuff out. Like the other day, he'd left a loaf of bread out on the counter, and I know exactly what he's doing. He put some in the toaster, started watching his phone, and then just walked off.
Man, that's tough. But the good thing is that it is something that can be worked on. But you're right. We had phones that were attached to the kitchen wall with a curly cord, and you didn't.
You could only go so far.
Right, you could only go so far, and it sure was boring looking at those 10 numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, John, really appreciate you spending time this evening with us. Hang on while I'll talk to you offline. But again, really appreciated your time, and really appreciated you being here and sharing your experience with being a grandpa with us.
Hey, no problem.
Thank you for listening to the Cool Grandpa Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and share it with a friend. That's the best way you can help us to expand our community, as well as get the news out about how valuable grandpas are in the lives of those kids. If you'd like to leave me a comment or shoot me a potential topic for this podcast, please go to www.cool-grandpa.us. Look for the comments tab, fill it out, hit submit. It's as easy as that. Until next time, remember to stay cool.